Well, hi again, everyone. It's Rob Ryder, and it is Friday, the 27th of December, 2024. And today I want to talk to Elon Musk. Hey, Elon, why don't you use authority to acquire a Q clearance? Knowing that authority is the servant of God for your good. It says so in the Bible. That's what we're going to talk about today. And the reason we're going to talk about it for everybody else is, well, Elon Musk is having a hard time getting a higher clearance, although he apparently already has a top secret clearance. So my understanding, all that is left is a Q clearance. I'll show you where that comes from. But this is the point, Elon. If you already have a clearance, then you're already subject to the UCMJ, Uniform Code of Military Justice. And if you're subject to the Uniform Code of Military Justice, then you have the authority to file charges and specifications for violations of the laws of war, UCMJ, things of that nature. And not just against people that are also subject to the UCMJ, like the military, like myself, but through the military commissions, it's for everybody. So I want to talk about that a little bit, and that's what we're going to get into. And who am I? Well, I'm Retlusky Robert Allen, an indefinite enlistee. DoD ID number 12112800006. Also known as Rob Ryder. Email address is courtofrecord@aol.com. You'll find my other videos on YouTube at Rob Ryder with 3 B's, or more recent ones on Rumble with Rob Ryder with 2 B's. So yeah, Elon, let's help you get your Q clearance. Let's see what we got to do that, because I need you to lead the way with the authority to use the UCMJ so that I can follow right behind you, and every veteran can, so that we can use it. Because if veterans had access to the UCMJ, knowing what we know now, we wouldn't have all this shit happen in the United States. We could put an end to it. Because we could take people to military tribunals, or military commissions, or to a court-martial. Because we could file charges and specifications. Where if you're subject to the UCMJ, you can file charges and specifications. They can't stop you. And yet they do. So I need somebody a little more, name recognition to try it. And since J.D. Vance is an Ivy League attorney, trained attorney, he might know somebody to get a hold of in JAG that can fill in a few little things need to be taken care of. And pretty soon you're producing a piece of paper, and what will happen at the end is you'll get a Q clearance. Or whatever other relief you need. More on that in just a second. Let's get going. And it's wonderful that Romans chapter 13 pulls us all together for us, Elon, because it says, you only got to read the first 7 verses here, that let every person subordinate to the higher authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and those that exist have been established by God. So we got authorities who have authority, but the authority itself was established by God. Not necessarily the authorities, the ones that are going to use it, but the authority itself. Therefore, whoever resists authority opposes what God has appointed, and those who oppose it will bring judgment upon themselves. For rulers are no cause of fear to good conduct, but to evil. Do you wish to have no fear of authority? Then do what is good, and you will receive approval from it. For it is a servant of God for your good. But if you do evil, be afraid, for it does not bear the sword without purpose. It is a servant of God to inflict wrath on the evildoer. Therefore, it is necessary to be subject not only because of wrath, but also because of conscience. This is why you pay taxes, for the authorities are ministers of God, devoting themselves to the very thing. Pay to all their dues, taxes to whom taxes are due, toll to whom tolls due, respect to whom respect is due, honor to whom honor is due. Thus saith the sovereign Lord. So, through his ministers. So anyways, right? Authorities are ministers of God. Very good. So if you have authority and you use it, then you're an authority, and you're one of the authorities, and that made you a minister of God because you're using the tool that God gave. So if you can get some authority, you're a minister of God. And I'm just saying, well, they're talking about this almost like it's a military thing, right? Because you're subordinate to higher authorities, like it's a hierarchical structure, much like the military. So even though I was a mere E6 in the Army, I had some authority. But there are many above me who had authority over me. Yeah, I think that's in the Bible someplace. And this is the key, though, that, but if you do evil, be afraid, for it does not bear the sword without purpose. Well, then who the heck is the sword? Well, that'd be the military. Right? So if you have authority to bring something to the military's attention they got to deal with, then they have to deal with it. And if it means to deal with somebody that's been doing evil, then they shall do that. So what they're doing, Elon, is they're keeping us from using this avenue. It's all preordained, but we keep trying to go to the civilian courts, led there by esquires, who are by definition crown agents, that have overtaken the civilian side of the courts. So we need to get into the military side. It's a completely different jurisdiction. So a week ago, out on the 16th of December, in The Guardian, it was reported that Elon Musk will not receive highest level government security clearance. Well, how could that be? What did I have to say? The space entrepreneur is unlikely to receive government security clearance, if he so applied, even as his SpaceX launch company blasts military and spy agency payloads into orbit, according to a report on Monday. And it went on to say that Musk currently holds a top secret clearance. So apparently there's something higher than top secret, which is a Q clearance. We'll look at that in just a second. That took years to obtain after he discussed using marijuana in 2018, podcast Joe Rogan. Well, Elon, that's where you made your mistake. You see, marijuana is a commercial term. And so somebody owns that word. So if you agree that you use marijuana, then, you fall into their jurisdiction. Or what you should have done was you relied on the Bible and gone to Genesis chapter 1, verse 29, where it says, "Behold, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is on the face of all the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit. You shall have them for food." What they call marijuana, you call food. Or from the 70s, and I wish I could remember if it was on an album or if it was in a movie, stoner album, where they were sitting around smoking a big-ass joint, and came up and said, "Well, why do they call it marijuana?" And the answer was, well, because you can't charge hemp. Go figure. Right? So don't agree it's marijuana, and it isn't. But since you already got past that, and you may have some other things like semi-legal drug, ketamine. What else we got going there? A little LSD, ecstasy, magic mushrooms. You could have lived in the barracks back in the 70s. Not that I did any of that stuff myself, but I may have seen it done. And this says, typically candidates undergo federal security screenings by the Department of Defense may not receive clearance if the agency expressed concerns about drug or alcohol use. Well, apparently they didn't do that because they gave you a top secret clearance. That was never a problem. But I think you're talking about you want to get a Q clearance, which has a whole different level to it. Sorry, the computer's going awful slow tonight. Q clearance. If we look at our little chart here, right, what's the difference between a top secret and a Q clearance? Well, a Q clearance allows you to see restricted data. Top secret restricted data, secret restricted data, confidential restricted data. And guess what? Even if you have a top secret clearance, you can't see any of that. It doesn't matter if it's just confidential. If it's restricted data, you ain't get to look. All right? You need to have access to restricted data. I have a Q clearance myself, Elon. I used to take care of a nuclear power plant. You know what? They give you Q clearances. It was this one, Elon, Davis-Besse Nuclear Power Station. I was the instrumentation and control planner for this thing, so I was in every system that the nuclear plant had. And you'd be surprised how many locked doors you have to get through to end up here, which is the control room. But all this is mine. Mine, M-I-N-E. I'm responsible for everything. From where that light was there all the way back to wherever it was in the plant was mine. And the interesting thing is most of these guys here are probably Navy nukes, right? And the Navy nuclear program kicked the Army out, or they worked a deal to get the Army kicked out, and they had the nuclear power program. Admiral Rickover did it. So now I'm a NCO from the Army, had nothing to do with nuclear power other than going to the schools I went to in the Army. And, you know, this is like their sacred ground here. Well, I'm going to walk right across their ground and go here to the right where there was another room that had restricted data, restricted entry. And that's where all the modules were that runs all that stuff, right? And they weren't allowed in there. Interesting how they have it all set up. But that's just to show you that, you know, there is a hierarchical structure at work, and a Q clearance is higher than a top secret clearance, which comes from the Department of Energy. So, this is what you're trying to get, and they're trying to stop you. Now we're going to get into why are we here? What can we do to help Elon? Well, I'm going to tell you something, Elon. If you were to go and just take a minute, I'll read it for you. Right? 6th Article of the Constitution. 3rd subsection. The senators, representatives before mentioned, and members of several state legislatures and all, ALL, all executive and judicial officers, both of the United States and the several states, shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution. But no religious test shall ever be required as a qualification in any office or public trust under the United States. Well, it would be people that would fit into that criteria that would be trying to keep you from having your security clearance. So what you want to know is, well, if the person telling you you can't have a security clearance, you want to see their oath of office to make sure they're who they say they are. Because as it turns out, this is the oath that satisfies the 6th Article of the Constitution. Why? Because it says so. The oath or affirmation required by the 6th Article of the Constitution of the United States shall be administered in the following form. Right? That's how it goes. It got no so help me God at the end. And it does have a place to put your name in it, but there's no so help me God at the end. Well, this isn't the oath any of those people are taking. And again, this is state or United States executive or judicial officers or the Congress or whatever. None of those people are taking it because they're the United States of America. They're not the United States. They're this compromise of some kind after the Civil War, because the Civil War never ended, because it never ended the martial law. The United States of America is actually part of the Organization of American States. It's one of the states of the Organization of American States, which has a big-ass building right outside of the White House, just down the road from it. It's where Jimmy Carter, signed a treaty giving up the Panama Canal. If you want to go tell Trump that, go look at the Office of or the Organization of American States. That's where the paperwork is signed. And go find the treaty. See if it was actually done. I'm going to say right now, there's always an error in everything they do. So you're going to find something you can say, well, there never was a treaty. So anyways, this is the first law of the United States after ratification of the Constitution, called an act to regulate time, manner of administering certain oaths. That was the act signed into law by George Washington, President, on June 1st, 1789. And now it's commonly known as 1 Stat 23 because it's the first statute, and the statutes at large. And the statutes at large are the laws of the United States, and so it still applies, although nobody's taken the oath. They just act like they don't have to. They have a fucking excuse, but it's just an excuse. Um, so there you go. And not only was it said once, now we can go look at the Title IV United States Code and see in Section 101, because this has to do with states now, that every member of a state legislature and every executive judicial officer of a state, that'd be like the governor and the judges and the, any constitutional officer from your constitutional state is who we're talking about, has to have taken this oath right here, which is the same oath that's on 1 Stat 23. And then 102 says they have to record it. Well, I've tried to get these before, and, I've done Freedom of Information. They ain't got them. The only oath they have is the counterfeit state oath of the state that they took, using a fictitious name with a middle initial or some other thing. So that's my point. So what you need to do is go turn them in under the UCMJ / Military Court Martial or Military Commission Act for charges and specifications. Let's look at that real quick. So what you need to do, Elon, is you need to exercise your authority because you're under the Uniform Code of Military Justice. How come I can say that? Because in the Uniform Code of Military Justice, which is Chapter 47 of Title 10 of the United States Code, it'll tell you persons who are subject to this chapter. And so for myself, well, I'm a member of the regular component of the Armed Forces, including those awaiting discharge after expiration of terms of enlistment. Volunteers for time of their muster or acceptance into the Armed Forces. Well, I volunteered. And I've never been discharged, so I'm still waiting. So, just by that first sentence, I'm under the UCMJ. It doesn't necessarily help you, but how about this? In a time of declared war or contingency operation, persons serving with or accompanying the armed forces in the field. Well, I say that would be you. That because you have a DoD ID number, you're working with the military. Right? So that puts you under the UCMJ, so you don't need to go to civilian courts. They have to take you to a court-martial court because you are subject to the UCMJ. And the Supreme Court has said that the military jurisdiction, military legal jurisdiction is separate from the civilian legal jurisdiction. And goes on to list all the different kinds of people. The voluntary enlistment of a person who has the capacity to understand the significance of enlisting in the armed forces shall be valid for purposes of jurisdiction under subsection A. That would be me. And change the status of a civilian to a member of the armed forces shall be effective upon taking oath of enlistment. There's nothing in there about ever losing it. So, anybody who's ever enlisted is still enlisted. And we're all subject to the UCMJ, and we're going to follow you into the place to file charges and specifications just as soon as you figure out these few details for us. See, because this is what will make all them esquires really nervous is when a veteran can go in and file charges and specifications. And why can we? And who can? Right? Article 30, charges and specifications may be preferred only by a person subject to this chapter. Well, there you go. First of all, you got to be subject to the UCMJ before you can do it. And this is how you're going to do it. Preferred by presenting in writing under signed oath before a commissioned officer of the armed forces who is authorized to administer oaths, which is somewhere else in here. Yeah, here we go, Article 136. Authority to administer oaths. The following persons on active duty or performing active duty training may administer oaths for the purpose of military administration, including military justice. Well, that would be all judge advocates, all summary court martial, all adjutants, assistant adjutants, acting adjutants, personal adjutants, all commanding officers of Navy, Marine Corps, and Coast Guard, all staff judge advocates, legal officers, all persons designated by regulation. I would think that between you and JD Vance and, Pete Hegseth and somebody, you can find somebody who's going to allow you to fucking file charges and specifications. You're going to do it on this form here. It's called a DD form 458. It's a charge sheet. Violation of the UCMJ. An article. and specification. What is it they did? Affidavit for me, the undersigned, authorized by law to administer oath in cases of this character, personally appeared the above named accuser on whatever day it is and signed the foregoing charge specifications under oath that he, she is a person subject to Uniform Code of Military Justice. Just make sure when you do it that you use your full legal name. Right? Last, first, middle initial. Well, you don't have a middle initial. Right? You don't have a middle name. I'm saying this for myself, right? Every document that I file with the military, they have last, first, middle initial or middle name. It's Ritluski, comma, Robert Allen, with no comma between Robert and Allen. Robert Allen, according to the military, is my first name. Anyways, this is a charge sheet. But this is only then for people that are subject to the UCMJ. And maybe some of the people we need to deal with aren't necessarily subject to the UCMJ. And then for that, we have to go to the Military Commission Form 458, where it says the same thing, that sign foregoing charge specification under oath, he or she is person subject to Uniform Code of Military Justice. Again, only somebody who's subject to the Uniform Code of Military Justice can file this. But who it applies to when you do it on this form is people that are then subject to Military Commission Act. And this thing was saying down here that what's the MCA do? Creates a broad definition of unlawful enemy combatant. The MCA definition of unlawful enemy combatant, a term which prior to the MCA had no meaning in U.S. or international law, applies both to citizens and non-citizens and is broad with potential for constant expansion. It leaves in the hands of the President or Defense Secretary nearly all unrestricted authority to declare people unlawful enemy combatants. And as it turns out, there's a manual for military commissions. It's the 2010 version. Let's see what kind of jurisdiction it has. It'll be on page 42. What does it say? It says requisites of military commission jurisdiction. A military commission always has jurisdiction to determine whether it has jurisdiction. So you got to take it to them and let them decide if they have jurisdiction. It doesn't really matter. Right? But basically it says it's going to cover the things in Chapter 47 of the 47A. Chapter 47 is the UCMJ, and 47A is this Military Commission Act codified into the United States Code. The jurisdiction of military commission with respect to offenses under 47A of this title is not affected by place where military commission sits. The jurisdiction of the military commission with respect to military government or law of war is not affected by the place where military commission sits. Military government, see, this is the whole thing. We are under martial law. We have been since President Lincoln executed his General Order 141. He put the United States under martial law. And there's never been anything to get the United States out of martial law. There's been things talking about the United States of America and certain states, but not the United States. So the United States is still under martial law, which means everybody in the United States is under martial law. If we could figure out where to go take this stuff to, as veterans now, we could take all these crimes that we may come across to a military commission that has somebody do something about it. Instead of waiting on the local yokel, sheriff who didn't take a proper oath of office, or the state cop who didn't take a proper oath of office, or all these other bullshitters who didn't take a proper oath of office. They can all just, get out of the way. Now, if they've been in the military and they take a military oath, well, that's a different story. Well, we can give them some authority. Or actually, we make them the sword. We are the authority. T's, using authority. And so, unlawful enemy combatant, what is that definition? Well, it is a person who is engaged in hostilities or who has purposely and materially supported hostilities against the United States, or its co-belligerents who is not lawful enemy combatant, including persons who are part of Taliban, Okay, so a person who has engaged in hostilities or who has purposely and materially supported hostilities against the United States. Oh, you mean enemies of the United States? Yes, that's what we're talking about. So, based on that definition, if you go look on page 256, we'll find the crimes that they're talking about that could be subject to under this Military Commission Act. All right, crimes triable by military commission: murder of protected person, attacking civilians. That could have been the riots up there in Minnesota. Attacking civilian objects. Oh, you mean like tearing down statues? Attacking protected property. We might have to read what that is exactly. Pillaging. Isn't that a lot like looting, only worse? Because now, I guess looting may be a civilian crime, but pillaging is a military crime. Denying quarter, taking hostages, employing poison or similar weapons, like chemtrails, using protected persons as shields. Well, that'd be every day in America. Using protected property as a shield, torture, cruel and inhumane treatment, intentionally causing serious bodily injury, mutilating or maiming. All right, we're talking about all this woke shit with the gendered operations. Well, that would be mutilation, my friends. That's a military crime. Murder in violation of law of war, destruction of property in violation of war, using treachery or perfidy, improperly using false flag of truce, improperly using distinctive emblem. Wow, that's a whole bunch of people here. Intentionally mistreating a dead body, rape, sexual assault or abuse, hijacking, terrorism, providing material support for terrorism, wrongfully aiding the enemy. We could go on. Spying. We'll just stop there. So, in the DoD Law of War Manual, to be considered a spy, one of the first traits is somebody who hides their identity. Okay, so knowing what we know, let's go look at Title II United States Code, Section 25. It has to do with the oath of Speaker, members, and delegates. Now we're talking about the House of Representatives, right? This is what they're supposed to do. At the first session of Congress, after the general election of a representative, the oath of office shall be administered by a member of the House of Representatives to the Speaker, and by the Speaker to the members and delegates present, and to the clerk, previous to entering on any other business, and the members and delegates afterwards appear previous to taking their seats. And they're going to make, the oath will be printed, there'll be 2 copies, And we can see right here that it's referencing 1 Stat 23. That's its basis for what's supposed to have been done. Well, what do you think they're actually doing? Let's go look at that. I'm going to use this one as my example because it's blatantly obvious, right? So now we're not talking like the first day of the session, because this is on January 17th. And normally the first day would be like January 3rd or something like that. But this is the day where they say the oath of office for members resident commissioners, and delegates. The oath of office required by the 6th Article of the Constitution of the United States, comma, and as provided by Section 2 of an Act of May 13th, 1884, to be administered to members, Right, the text of which is carried in 5 U.S.C. 3331, which is the exact same text that's supposed to be taken by commissioned officers. I don't know why they're having Congress take it, but what they didn't do is they didn't take the oath required by the 6th Article of the Constitution, because that's in 1 Stat 23. And as we can see, they didn't make any reference to that. This is all supposed to be posted. Whatever oath they took is supposed to be posted in the Congressional Record. And here they're taking one that says, "So help me God" at the end, right? This is the one in 5 U.S.C. 3331. And so this can't be used because the 6th article says you can't have any religious test. And so help me God is a religious test. It's asking God for help. Not only that, though, when we start looking at the names that these people use, you got a guy using the middle initial, and you got just Mo Brooks, and there's Gary J. Palmer, and here's Eric A. Rick Crawford, and right, this isn't these people's names. That's what they put on their oath? Let's be serious. But that is what they put on their oath. And so all these people are hiding their true identity because that's not their identity. Their identity would be on their driver's license. On a driver's license that has a little gold star up on the right-hand corner showing that it complies with the Real ID Act. Has your full legal name on it. And none of these are these people's full legal names. But that's not all. We go on. After they do that, now they're going to do another oath, access to classified information. And we can see again, they're using middle initial names. So all these people are spies. They hid their true identity in order to get access to classified information in the United States. That's enough reason right there to have them all arrested. So let's see what the specifications are, right? There's the charge, 27, spying. What's the specifications? The accused collected or attempted to collect certain information by clandestine means or while acting under false pretenses. Well, we just saw that they did. Jeepers, the accused intended or has reason to believe the information collected would be used to injure the United States or to provide an advantage to a foreign power. The accused intended to convey such information to the enemy of the United States or one of the co-belligerents of the enemy. So, write it up and send it in. Say, let the military commission decide. What's the maximum punishment? It would be death. That'll get their attention. Because then there's attempts and so forth and so on. A conspiracy, well, there's a good one. Conspire against the United States. Solicitation. You mean esquires can't solicit? That's wonderful. Got contempt, perjury, obstruction of justice, and it goes on and on and on, Elon. So there's plenty of places to do it. It's just, getting somebody to get it through the first time. I'm saying you could take somebody from Congress and put them on here and say, because, they're not really Congress, they're just a spy pretending to be Congress. Charge them, charge 27, violation of... as a spy. Specifications, put it in, take it to the right officer, somebody who can do this. And if this was done right, well, then they would have to acknowledge it and do something with it. But because we don't do this, instead we'd say we're going to go to the FBI or we're going to go to the state police or to the county sheriff or whoever the hell it is. Right? We're not using the hierarchical structure that has the authority. Because the authority wields the sword, and the sword is the military. So I say we're the authority. We just need to go file the paperwork. Right? It's one thing to have it. It's another thing to use it. And while they may make it so we can't use it, it doesn't mean we don't have it. We're just not using it. We got to figure out a way to use our authority to file charges and specifications under the UCMJ or the Military Commission Act, and we will soon get their attention. It'll all get better and a lot faster if we can get that done. So in closing, Elon, you got to find out who's the one holding it up and asking to see their oath of office. Make sure it has their full legal name on it. Make sure it's exactly the way it was supposed to have been done. Your best bet would say, well, send it to me and I'll look at it for you. I'll tell you if it was done right. Because I ain't seen one yet that's done right. Even the form they use is wrong. But that's too much to get into today. I've done what I wanted to say. And you want to get a Q clearance, Elon, then, file some charges and specifications. Let's talk about it. Okay, you all have a great night, great day, great weekend, great. Happy New Year. And let's get this train a rolling. We'll see you now.